And we are back to discuss more Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Okay, so Preston, a couple days ago you hit me up. You wanted to discuss something in specific in regards to Falcon and Winter Soldier that involves Baltimore?
How that looked nothing like Baltimore. Well, the overhead establishing shot is Baltimore, and you get the classic Baltimore row home. So row homes are like really important to like the look and feel of Baltimore. It's something people are very proud of. Row homes, marble steps. It's like a very classic thing. Most of Baltimore City, regardless if you're East Side or West Side, it's row homes. And so it's a bit weird when they're like, oh, Baltimore, and it's like, the city, and it's some standalone house. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You just did an establishing shot of a row home. Come on. Come on.
The audience doesn't know this, but Preston has been itching to get this off his chest for fucking days.
Well, there's that, and then those cops. It's so funny because like that scene. This is episode 2 we're talking about. Like that.
Wait, no, I think it's episode 3 is where this happened.
Episode 3
or 4, I think. I don't remember. I forgot. One of the episodes, but continue.
The Isaiah Bradley episode, the first Isaiah Bradley, because he returns in episode 5. But and we're talking. This is after episode 5. So, that scene is supposed to show like how racist cops are. And it's like, man, you made those Baltimore cops into like the nicest Baltimore cops that possibly exist. Like in reality, like that guy, like Falcon, they would have already tried to like put his head on the pavement. Like that's just ridiculous.
Jesus.
That they were like, sir, is this man bothering you? Like, no, it would no Baltimore cop is that nice. Come on.
I will say this in regards to the Isaiah Bradley stuff. Normally, whenever like a racial discussion pops off, I tend to just roll my eyes because oftentimes it comes off as virtual signaling or cartoony. One example is when we covered Lovecraft Country. Even you called out how over the top and silly it was, but here I actually like the inclusion of his backstory because it felt like it carried some weight and it felt real.
Well, I mean that stuff really did happen. There really was like medical experiments on black soldiers. And so they're taking from history. This is also based on the comic book. There's a comic book about Isaiah Bradley and his experience. So that and of being a Captain America, and that is taken from the comic book, and it's also taken from the real world. So that actually happened.
Of course.
And of course, and so his feelings and everything. I mean. What's funny is when people say, "Oh, Captain America, it's just why is it getting all political?" I was like, for what? Well, first of all, like when has Captain America comic book not been incredibly political? It's always been a very, very political book, like right from its founding. Like keep in mind that first issue of Captain America way back in the day of Captain America punching Hitler. Keep in mind. America had not joined the war yet. Okay?
Oh.
Yeah. Okay?
I'm not too familiar with Captain America comic stuff.
So Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, they're two Jewish guys from New York. And so America had not joined the war yet. And, there's some questions, it's like, oh, Hitler is doing this stuff in Europe, but it's Europe. Who cares? The U.S. was doing some secret or not so secret, like help and funding to Britain, giving them military aid, but we hadn't thrown in officially with Britain. And so the actual thing that was dragging us into the war was our antagonism with Japan, which kind of went on, like there was a building antagonism with Japan that goes back 20 years before World War II. But that's the thing that was actually pulling us in. And the thing that pulls us into World War II is Japan attacks us and then Germany declares war on us. It had, America didn't like do the right thing or anything. Like we were dragged into World War II kicking and screaming. But there were many Americans who, because America's still today, the largest ethnic group in America are Germans. Germans, people have German background in America. I have some German background. It's the largest ethnic group of any American is people of German background, and there were a lot of pro-German Americans that existed at that time. There's a group called the Bund, which were essentially these neo-Nazi alt-right types that actually, after the publication of Captain America, the Bund started threatening Stan Lee and Jack Kirby for having Captain America punching Hitler. It was a thing. So when people say like, oh, Captain America was never, why is it getting so political? Like, oh my God, like I mean,
apparently it had its roots in political bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went away from the political. I will admit that during the 60s, and it kind of went away, and Jack Kirby had left Marvel Comics for a while, and they had made Captain America into a blanket, commie fighter. And what's funny is that later they retconned all that and said, no, Steve Rogers was an ice. And the commie fighter was this guy, was this other Captain America who was, a weirdo, jingoist right-winger. And so the real Captain America has very complicated feelings, This is why Captain America is always portrayed as like, he's super patriotic, but to him, like, patriotism is complicated. It has to do with questioning your government. It has to do with understanding that your government often does bad things. And so the Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far has been the most Captain America property that's happened yet.
You think so?
I mean, like, oh, absolutely. In how complicated politically it is. Like, Civil War starts that way, and then they do the cop out. Okay, like the whole moral the moral quandary of Civil War is, oh, should superheroes have to have a council of people send them in to do work? Like, what if they need to help somebody, but the bureaucracy says no? Well, that's the question. That's the thing about government. There's checks and balances and oversight, and sometimes the bureaucracy makes the right call and sometimes it doesn't. It was an interesting moral question, and then it becomes irrelevant because it's about defending Bucky Barnes, and it's Steve's best friend. So, like, there's no moral question there anymore. He's going to fucking try to protect his best friend. Like, at that point, like, sorry, Iron Man, you're wrong. And Captain America, you're right. That's the question's out the door. The same thing happens in the comic book. It's just a little different, but they do a cop out.
Well, I will say that what I'm liking so far about the show are all the gray area and characters and, like, the situations they're in. But the main plot about, like, the Flag Smashers, I can't seem to get too invested into it. It just doesn't catch my attention as much. Like, I'm more into what's happening with Zemo and the Wakandans and John Walker and his situation, and even Bucky going back and hitting up all the former Hydra agents he helped prop up as the Winter Soldier. I think that was a scene in episode 1. That was like 3 minutes, and I'm more interested in that than the random teenagers bitching about borderlines. I just didn't care.
I mean, what's incredible about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I'd say that the regular plot is actually a little weak, and it's so strong on the thematic. Like, when you think about, like, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, this is the one plot of the show is a black man has a bunch of moral questions and problems, taking up the mantle of Captain America, the embodiment of America, from a white guy. And it parallels, like, America's history, as America's history is a bunch of white people, and then the country slowly becoming more diverse. And, the embodiment of America is shifting and changing. And so that you've got these parallel structures there. And what that all means, like, if you are a minority that has experienced abuse in the past, like, can you still be patriotic? And, that's the whole Isaiah Bradley talking to Sam kind of question.
Well, I think that was episode five.
That was in
but
episode 5.
in episode one, he has like the choice. I think his whole thing of not taking the shield was not because White Guy Steve had it and passed it on to him, but the legacy that comes with it and all the burden too. Like heavy lies the crown sort of thing. That's what I got from it. Sam wants to be his own man, not the sequel to something that came before, which is what John Walker is struggling with. Which they did a good job showing that.
Yeah, I mean, the John Walker, they've actually made him John Walker is so much better than comic book John Walker.
Really?
Like show John Walker is just so much more nuanced and dealing with more trauma. You can relate to him a lot more than comic book John Walker. Like comic book John Walker is essentially just a right-wing super patriotic maniac who just like goes too far. But like show John Walker, he's struggling with so many things, like insecurity about being good enough, like his own issues about him and what his government made him do, then his relationship with his best friend and all of these different things. He's not so much the jingoist right winger as he is in the comic book. And they purposely like gave him, a Hispanic wife and a black best friend in the show to make him, not exactly just some sort of alt-right, racist kind of guy. So, they made him more complicated. He seems to be a guy who, he might be a good guy deep down, but he's been through some trauma and he clearly has a short fuse,
Right. By the way, real quick, I notice you keep using the word jingoist. For those of you who are like outside the U.S. and you don't really understand that word, it's basically a form of nationalism where you're like aggressive with how like you treat foreigners and people coming into your country. That's how I
Right. It's also like, yes, it's that, and it's also like war-centered patriotism. I got into an argument with one of your commenters about how like he's like, but left-wingers start wars too. In fact, and it's like of course left-wingers are like in wars. Okay, Lyndon Johnson had Vietnam, Bill Clinton had Bosnia, Kosovo, and Operation Desert Fox, which Operation Desert Fox is like the Iraq War Part 1.5. Like it actually used more bombs than Iraq War 1, but no one remembers it because we didn't put any ground troops in. But of course, but the difference between left-wing war and right-wing war is that right-wing war is always about flag waving and patriotism, while left-wing war is more about like insecurity that they're going to be called out as being weak, and so we have to go to war to try to prove that we're not weak. While like right-wing war, you hear that's when you get all this like support the troops and like we have to blindly support our leader kind of like crap.
Right.
That's where they wrap patriotism up into war. While left-wing war isn't so patriotic. It's done for other weird reasons, but
you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. Just fair warning.
God, and we're going to read and respond to every comment.
But no, I kind of feel bad for John Walker. By the way, I think someone told me how the actor for John Walker, I forgot the man's name. His father is very famous. Like, once again, it escapes me. I'm sure someone will correct me.
Oh, it's Goldie Hawn's and Kurt Russell's child.
Right, but I forgot the man's name. But apparently, the actor went for Captain America role before. The other guy, God, I keep forgetting these motherfuckers' names. I normally get them right.
He applied for being back when Chris Evans was.
Yes, Chris Evans. Thank you. Yeah, but Chris Evans got it, and he wanted to be the original Captain America. He never got it, but Chris Evans did, and I think that's pretty cool that they kind of just put him in there. Marvel has actually done this before. Once again, the name escapes me, but the actor for Justin Hammer in the second Iron Man movie, he actually applied to be Tony Stark, but Robert Downey Jr. got it.
I mean, he would have been okay too. I have to admit,
Really,
because
The guy who played Justin
yeah,
Hammer.
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, thank you.
Sam Rockwell is, he's just an incredible actor. I mean, though Robert Downey Jr. just has more charisma,
Of
so
course.
I think that's why they chose, and it worked out.
But do me a favor, back me up on something here. I feel as though like Sam and Bucky hated the fuck out of John Walker initially for almost no reason. When he started acting
Oh,
like a psycho douchebag, then yes, that was justified, but way before that.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that I read a Reddit post where people were like, "Wait a minute, am I being the asshole here?" Like, like I applied for, I'm a war veteran. I worked really hard, and then I got chosen to be Captain America because somebody else turned it down, and now I'm trying to stop international terrorists and help out people. Like, am I really the bad guy? But I was gonna say that thank goodness the plot is, everybody's like, oh, why does it have to be so political? If it wasn't political, what would the show have? Like the actual plot doesn't really even make much sense. Like we're not even sure what the Flag Smashers like do and why they have all of this support and why people like that heist at the beginning, like what were they stealing? Like vaccinations for refugees? Like why aren't there enough vaccinations? Like it's all very cloudy, the actual like regular plot. Nando V Movies actually did a video about this. Like a lot of the episodes are weirdly edited if you watch closely. Like there's a lot of people saying stuff where you don't see their face, which means it's been added in post. And the plot of like why the Flag Smashers are such a high priority for being caught and what they're doing is a little murky. And so there was a theory that the original plot was that there was a pandemic, a man-made pandemic, which is from the comic book, and that they needed to like, these are vaccines to deal with the pandemic. But the fact that like claiming that the government created the pandemic, because that's such a huge conspiracy theory now,
Right.
that Disney thought that it would be morally, rough to push that forward,
Right.
and so they edited it all out, which is why kind of the Flag Smasher plot doesn't really make too much sense, like who are these people? Why are they running from the government? What crimes are they committing? Why are they committing crimes? It's not really very clear. It becomes more clear in episode 5 when they kind of say, well, they're moving people, they're shutting down refugee camps, but they didn't start shutting down the refugee camps until episode 5. So I don't know.
Well, Carly Morenthal, I do know in the comics it's supposed to be a man, Carl. So nice twist on making it a girl, but I just don't really see her as much of a threat. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if it's the shoddy masks or the characters just aren't that engaging, but I really don't see them as the threat that Agatha was in WandaVision. I just don't really. It's just I just don't care about the scenes with the Flag Smashers. And you do have a good point about the editing, because episode 5 begins in a weird way. Like, it almost seems like episode 5, the way it begins, really should have been, like, given to the last couple of minutes of episode 4 when John does the thing and kills the guy.
So this is something my wife pointed out when I was watching, and this must be bad, like, weird editing. Why is it that Falcon and the Winter Soldier are masters with the shield, and then we have a training montage of Falcon like screwing up with the shield and then getting better, right? Like, shouldn't he have been fine with like, why he was like a master of the shield and then forgets and has to relearn. Like it was clearly out of order, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I want to do mental gymnastics to try to make it make sense, but you have a point.
I mean, and she was pointing out of a lot of things that were out of order. Like, how is oh,
you want to bring her in here?
No, 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 no. She pointed out that how did um, Sharon Carter? Well, I guess it was revealed that everybody had this theory that Sharon Carter
Power
was the
broker?
power broker, but then she pointed out that Zemo knew that the power broker existed, and Zemo was arrested prior to the blip. So the power broker must be older than the blip. So Sharon Carter couldn't be the power broker.
Damn, good
So
catch.
right, but the power broker turned out to be Elaine,
Oh,
right?
Elaine from Seinfeld?
Yeah, or yeah, I
Wait,
think
is she the power broker? Is that confirmed?
she's at least Madam Hydra. It's not confirmed yet that she's the power broker,
Madam
but she's
Hydra, who is that? Is that the one that takes over Hydra after Robert Redford's character goes down in Winter Soldier?
no, Madam Hydra is just from the comic book. She's a weird character. She's an agent of Shield who later is revealed to be an agent of Hydra and
Uh-huh.
Madam Hydra, and then is later to be revealed to be part of an organization called Leviathan. She was a triple agent. She was actually like against both Shield and Hydra.
Really?
Yes. I think she was like trying to get Hydra and Shield to fight each other so that Leviathan could come in or something strange. I
So
don't
who's
know.
behind Leviathan? Nazis, Soviets, randoms?
I'm not that familiar with the Leviathan plot, but so when Elaine came in, I Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I was like, oh, that's a big name actor, but I didn't really know who she was, so I had to look her up.
Hmm.
But
I knew it was Elaine, but like when she gives him the card and the card is black and
Black.
what the fuck was that? Like I'm sure comic book guys are like, oh, I'm over here like
First of all, whoever pretends to be a Captain America comic book fan, they're like the fact that I actually read like Captain America in the late '80s is just like a miracle. Like hardly anybody. He was not a fucking A-list like comic book.
Comic Book
Okay?
Girl 19 always says this. Like the A-lists were like the X-Men.
Yeah, X-Men and Spider-Man were always like that's why there's like so many X books and so many Spider books, and they were just Avenger books. It was structured differently, but there was the Avengers and the West Coast Avengers and Captain America, but I don't know they didn't have like big crossover events like the X books did and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So like Fall of the Mutants or Inferno or Mutant Massacre or whatever. It was different, so
By the way, I wanted your thoughts on this because it started trending for no reason. There's this it was trending on Twitter. I got involved in it somehow and another YouTube channel made a meme of it. So basically, this actor Stephen Ford, he came
Mhm.
out and he tweeted out that he thought it was fucked up that the Wakandan Special Forces, I forgot their name, the three ladies that come in, they came in and they had the perfect technique to disarm Bucky, and he thought the actor on Twitter thought it was fucked up that they did that. I actually have to disagree. It would make a lot of sense that the Wakandan Special Forces who gave Bucky the arm knew exactly how to disarm him just in case he turned on them. Someone even pointed out that Tony Stark could learn a thing or two about, about this, having a failsafe and shit. So
Yeah, yeah.
I disagree. I liked it. I thought it was great. Do you agree with do you think it's fucked up or do you agree that
What I mean, why would it be fucked up?
because because Bucky put his trust in them and like they kind of somewhat betrayed his trust by putting in that failsafe without his knowledge, which
I
once
mean,
again,
maybe they just studied him and they found the failsafe. I don't know if they put in the failsafe.
I'm pretty sure they put in the failsafe. It would make sense for special forces to be that because they're giving him like a what is it? Is it adamantium or vibranium? I always go back and forth
It's
on that.
it's vibranium, but yeah, yeah.
Isn't his arm
It's
made of vibranium? I, th- I
uh,
If it would be, it would make sense for them to put a failsafe in it so it can't be used against him. It makes perfect sense. Perfect sense to me, at least.
I
For
mean,
them to put
he's an unstable character,
Of course.
By the way, I thought it was very funny that she did all the trigger words, and she did them in Wakandan. It's like, why wouldn't you do it in English just to be safe? I mean, weren't they programmed into them in English in the first place, or weren't they programmed or maybe German even? Like, why would you do them
Sokovian.
in Sokovian? Like, why would you do them in Wakandan?
What he said was, Stephen Ford on Twitter, what he said was, okay, but what the Wakandans putting in a built-in weakness in Bucky's arm is like really messed up. It shows they never fully trusted him. He spent years trying to finally reclaim his autonomy, only to be undermined in an instant by those who helped. It's just sad. Once again, I disagree with Stephen. It sparked a whole fucking bullshit debate, by the way, because like a bunch of people came in and tried to make it racial.
Oh god.
I told you it was so fucking stupid. But like no, like to me it makes perfect sense.
I mean, everything in this show is racial, but not that.
I will say the best part of like the whole thing is as these people are like fucking up John Walker, Bucky, and Sam, Zemo just nopes the fuck right out of there. Like he just slips out the back.
Yeah,
He's been my favorite part.
No, Zemo is great. I actually thought it was a bit weird that he pieces out just so he can visit a memorial and then allows himself to be arrested.
That's been his whole. That's been his whole character, though. Like Sokovia, like he's really, he's
just
very patriotic
I don't know.
that way.
Again, I think editing is a really weird thing. Like, remember how it was like a huge plot point that he found that mask in the car and then he kept it a secret? They're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Nothing." And he hides the mask, and you're like, "What is he doing?" And then there was the fight in the shipping yard, and he jumps to the top of some like container, puts on the mask for no reason, and then comes back down and takes it off.
First, it's not for no reason. You know that he has to put it on so a stunt double can come in.
It was for right. He does it for the trailer, but you can't things can't be for the trailer. Like just.
Remember
what was that about?
Remember in Picard when the chick is with her boyfriend at the very first episode, and then the Romulans like beam in and they knock her out, and then they purposely put like a bag over her head for some reason, and just when the bag's over in her head, she wakes up and beats the shit out of him.
Yeah. I mean,
like
why didn't they immediately kill her? But they put of course they put the bag over so the stunt double could do all the work.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah, it was just very odd.
By the way, hate to cut you off here, but this is very important. No. Did you ever get a chance to see the Zemo cut of Falcon Winter Soldier?
I did. The
Zemo cut is just what is it, 18 hours of him just dancing?
Dancing on loop? Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even upset. I think that's great. That Marvel is actually going. It was posted on the official Marvel YouTube page. Yeah. The fact that they did that, come on, man. Zemo is just the greatest.
I think it's pretty it's kind of sucky because he didn't blip, did he? I'm not sure if he blipped or not. Was he in prison? Was he in prison 5 years and then gets out and gets the dance party and then gets imprisoned again?
God, I hope he was blipped, because imagine if he wasn't blipped. He's just and all the guards were blipped and he's just there.
Half the guards are blipped, yeah. That's actually a plot of The Stand. One of the characters from The Stand, because in The Stand, a virus kills 99% of the planet, and this guy's in prison, and everyone in his prison dies except for him, and so he's in this prison alone, and he's starving, he's dying of thirst, and he gets rescued by the antagonist, and so he's forever loyal to the antagonist because he was gonna die of thirst in prison, So yeah, it would really suck if you're, blipped and you're in prison. Everybody else got blipped. But no, I'm sure just half the prison, so I don't know. I can't really figure out if he was blipped or not. Oh well.
But no, Zemo, favorite character so far. I love him. He hopefully he comes back. Somehow I'm sure he'll figure out a way to escape, because there's no way he's gonna grab that mask and just But he's becoming my favorite character so far. And I will say, this show, I like it. It feels a little different from WandaVision, but if that's to be expected.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I like the whole WandaVision clues and mysteries and theories in every episode versus where everything here is just straightforward. Because the only mystery here is who's the power broker.
But isn't it kind of odd though that all of the other stuff on the internet are these spoiler speculations? No one's actually talking about the themes of the show. Isn't that kind of weird? That everybody's just like, oh, who's the power broker? Or what, how did the Wakandans put in this technology? Isn't no one is really discussing the the race stuff, which is funny. I mean, maybe it's because like most of the watchers are, a bunch of like, you know, uh, comic book nerdy guys like us who are like nervous to talk about race. I don't
It's not that I'm nervous to
know.
talk about race. It's just that, it's just I don't want it.
You're not nervous. You're not nervous to talk about anything, but
I know, but I don't want it to be like a facet of everything everyone ever does. Because going back to what Stephen Ford said on Twitter, like he didn't say anything racial at all, and out of nowhere, yeah, Bucky got disarmed like the colonist he is.
you're on Twitter. You're on Twitter. Okay,
Yeah,
first of all, like Twitter is the worst. It's the worst.
I
Oh,
know.
like it's just. I mean, oh God. I recently watched a little bit of like Lindsay Ellis's last video
Oh
on
no.
like her like on how they like are trying to like cancel her on Twitter and stuff, and it's just like, oh my God, like it's just it's I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of people making their living being Twitter personalities, hoping people will donate to their Patreon for them just like making weird, nasty comments and trying to ruin people on Twitter. But that's just what they're looking for, you know. Um, and there's something. It's weird because some of the people that do it, and there's right wingers and left wingers that do this. They both participate in like trying to bring people down and like destroy people's reputations and make everything into a a troll war. But like they somehow get like joy out of it. They're like, oh, this is delicious, you know, like Lindsay Ellis was bringing up the fact that, do you remember that woman who was flying to Africa for work, and she didn't have any, she had like 100 Twitter followers or something, mostly just her friends. And she makes the joke, heading to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. And all of a sudden, like she gets onto a plane and it's like an 11-hour flight. And like in the 11 hours, like this is because she was like the number one trending in the world, and like got sent to all of her employers. And this was like, you know, a bad joke that everybody makes bad jokes to their friends, you know, like she didn't understand Twitter. She didn't have any followers. She thought this was being a tongue in cheek, like, sarcastic, offensive joke that she was making to her friends. And then all of a sudden, like the whole world is like, she lands and, just the devastation. Like, could you imagine? Like, oh, like your employers have gotten this. The whole world is talking about you. Like was that really proportional? But when you talk about the people that like, who were the Twitter influencers who like spread this stuff, they were like giddy. They're like, they're like, oh, it was so delicious. And like, people were trending like, oh, has she landed yet? Like, and taking pictures of her when she was landing, like all this Schadenfreude kind of stuff. Like, so like when you bring up Twitter, it's just like, that's what you expect. It's such a trash form of like social media that, I mean,
It would
both
have
of
made
us,
more sense if Carly's support and followers came from Twitter or the internet in general. That would have made a bit more sense than like random people in the park where she just goes and then they just,
oh, that was interesting. Her flash mob. Yeah. That was a good scene. I liked that. But like, because it is Carly's mission and message like is alluring, like, all of these people have been displaced and millions of people are being displaced, and they remember a time without borders and of being above nationalism. Like there's an allure to her side until she started killing people.
I would
But
say I'm surprised they didn't do this because once again they did it in WandaVision with Monica Rambeau. Remember that little flashback with Monica where all of a sudden she's blipped back into reality and everyone's at the hospital. It's all chaotic. I would have liked to have seen a flashback with Carly where how things were and how she enjoyed life before people came back into existence. That would have made more sense.
that would have been fascinating. Or, it would have been interesting to see her and her friends being ejected from their homes, you
Hmm.
know?
I mean,
Um,
if you want me to like sympathize with your villain, I mean, at least show us how life
yeah.
was that they're trying to get everything back to. So,
Yeah. And this is, that's a fascinating thing because when we talk about people being ejected from their homes and becoming refugees, like, that evokes obviously like various places in the world, like Israel, Palestine, or Northern Cyprus and Republic of Cyprus kind of situations where, yeah, like some people left their homes because of war and sometimes they weren't able to get their homes back, and then some people left their homes because of war and came back and people were there and they got ejected, and all of those kinds of feelings happen. And some people, you can feel justified, like, wait, this is mine. I wasn't expecting people to blip back. But I wonder if it would also the other way, like, this is a world where the people that blipped back seems to have been able to reclaim their property. But what about the people that blipped back that weren't able to reclaim their property? Which, that would be very Palestinian. Like in the many Palestinians like left their homes during war and then were not able to go back to their country, and and now their grandchildren, great grandchildren are still refugees living in refugee camps. In Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. So, that's interesting stuff too. So, I mean, that's what I say. Like the themes that the show is dancing around and involving are fascinating and are the best part of the show. The plot itself, it seems to be them wandering different plazas in Latvia, like the same plazas in Latvia, and like chasing people for some reason, like.
well, Disney and Marvel itself are trying to dance around certain things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Hydra always kind of like super affiliated with the whole Nazi thing? And I was just kind of
Yeah.
waiting for the Red Skull to spit out some Nazi shit during the first Captain America film, but it just seemed like his own faction was kind of split off from like the whole Nazism thing, and he was kind of
Well,
just doing his own thing.
yeah, no, well, that happens. Hydra is essentially evolves from the Nazis. They eventually, they eventually actually go against the whole master, like German master race, and choose something else as the master race. I forget like what it is, but which is why they don't do a Heil, they do like a fist thing, and for their Hail Hydra. Um, their ideology is it's an offshoot of Nazis, but it's different. Like there is an important shift, and I forgot what it is, But I don't know if Hydra are racists. I think they might disavow the racism, even though they still believe in supremacy. But I forget what the supremacy is based on. But this is the whole thing about like uh the Flag Smashers and like what Zemo keeps saying, that like once you're in this idea of supremacy, you can't go back from it. But it's odd because in a sense, the Flag Smashers and having supremacist attitudes, they're kind of like they kind of go against each other because nationalism by itself is a little supremacist, right? Like if you fundamentally believe, like with nation states and citizenship and all of these kind of things, you fundamentally believe that like some people deserve more resources and different treatment than others. Like the history of America is essentially people having arguments and fighting wars and changing the government to include more and more people in the idea of who should be the voter, who should be American. So like when America first begins, it's white male landowners who can vote. It's white male landowners who are citizens. When we say like all men are created equal, Jefferson meant white, male landowners. And then over time, landowner is taken away and it's all white men. And then it's, the Civil War happens and it's supposed to be all men, though, there's segregation and problems with that. And then, women are brought in and with women's suffrage in 1919. And then, we're still dealing with the end of segregation, the Civil Rights Act and everything. And today, the issue is more citizenship versus undocumented, right? Like people say, well, that person isn't a citizen, therefore they don't deserve the same rights as a person that is a citizen.
Mm.
And these large questions. Like, in fact, it's not just America. The history of the world has been about this idea that certain people deserve certain rights and other people don't. And we're going to come up with a reason why, One group is the chosen people and the other group is not. They're a bunch of infidels who deserve to die. This is the dichotomy in one way or the other, like throughout history. And so, the flag smashers, when they say like we shouldn't have borders, we should all be one people. It should be like an entire like equality, situation. But in the sense, but she's taken the serum, and now he says they're on a path of supremacy. So we'll see what that looks like. But then on the other hand, you've got the Captain America situation, and John Walker, even though he hasn't really been that in the show too much yet, like if it's supposed to be nationalistic, like Americans have some sort of greater rights than other people, and then Sam would be coming in and say, well, no, like maybe the American ideal and the patriotism of being American is the inclusivity. We see that battle in America today. Like, is Americanism exclusivity or is Americanism inclusivity? And, that's the fight. That's the fight today, right?
I find it sad that how these are great themes, but I don't see this in the show.
No, I mean,
why aren't these in the show?
I think they're definitely dancing around them.
They are,
I think it's
clearly.
I think it's been edited to hell. I think the show has been edited to hell.
Well, I also sympathize with the showrunners in the sense because a lot of these topics are sensitive. HBO does not give a fuck. I mean, we discussed a while ago how there were certain leaks out there from the Game of Thrones prequel Blood Moon where they wanted to turn the Children of the Forest like were originally black people, and then some curse makes them like the Children of the Forest after they had after they fought like the Northmen / white people. Like HBO doesn't care about that.
It's like the opposite of the Book of Mormon, where
sure.
I don't know, in the Book of Mormon, lost tribes of Israel come to America, and then God turns a bunch of them brown, which is where the American Indians come from, according to the Book of Mormon. But there is that question of, are you going to be part of a system and try to change it from within? Like understanding that a system has done bad, but you're going to be part of the system and try to change it from within. Note, I work for the American government, I made a conscious decision to like be part of the system and try to make it better from within. Or are you going to be angry at the entire system and reject it, wholesale? And so, that's what it's not like Sam doesn't understand that the American government's done fucked up stuff, but, he's got to fix it from within,
Mm-hmm.
Be Captain America.
You think he's going to be Captain America? Because one of my favorite moments of the show is towards the end when he and Bucky are having that conversation. It just seems like they themselves together can be the new like Cap, kinda, in a sense, where Bucky's like the arm that punches and Sam is the shield.
I guess. I mean, we could see it as like, the two of them together are like a multicultural thing. But I think, I'm sorry, I think Bucky he almost kind of represents white guilt, right? Like, right?
Go into this one. I'm curious about this one.
Right? So he's born understanding that the Winter Soldier, this former self of him, did all of this bad. And he kind of recognizes that. And he feels really bad about it. And you could argue how much he's responsible, but he feels guilty and he wants to make things right and wants to make things better. Like, that's kind of the thing about white guilt, right? Like, you kind of understand that, like, your ancestors did some bad stuff and it's arguable about how much responsibility is yours to bear, but you're still going to feel guilty and try to do something okay, to try to make amends for things. I mean, isn't that what's going on?
I don't get that at all with Bucky. I just think he wants to make amends for killing people. I think
but
that's
he
it.
didn't, I guess, but he didn't really kill the people. Not him.
True. That is.
He
that
did.
is true.
He didn't specifically kill those people.
I will say this kind of stuff flies over my head, and I don't know if this is like an American thing, because I am an immigrant. For those of you who don't know, I was born in Brazil. I'm kind of an immigrant. Spent my entire life around Latinos, Hispanics. But I will say this, like, I don't know if this is like an American thing where you guys like think about race all the time. That shit flies over my head.
I would say that. So certain Americans think about race all the time. I think if you live in a diverse community, you think about race all the time. I think if you're a minority, you think about race all the time. I think if you're a white person in the middle of Iowa that doesn't see minorities very much, I don't think you see white people. You think about race very much at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really interesting blog that I once read, in which I think it was entitled "Questions a Black Man Has for White People," and he had this list, and one was, "Do you guys think about us as much as we think about you?" And the answers were, "Yeah, not really. We don't really think about Black people that much," which is so telling, right? That like, every Black person has to think about white people every day, all the time. But white people, yeah, they don't really think about Black people that much. Maybe when they watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or I'm not saying, obviously nobody's monolithic. Lots of white people think about Black people all the time, but
Of course.
honestly, most people don't.
But Falcon and Winter Soldier, so far, I am enjoying it. Action scenes are great. Characters, for the most part, pretty good. I love Sam, love Bucky. They're dynamic. I will say it took me a while to get into the groove of it, but they're getting there.
It was not as advertised. It's not like buddy cop, two guys not getting along and then getting along.
It's not. No.
It's not. It's not that at all. It's not that at all.
Their chemistry, like it's building, but it's not instant click that I thought it was gonna be. But it's building.
I think they finally clicked this episode. Right?
There's a joke that someone made about you and me. So you know how like the layout I have for like the podcast where my character's on one side, your character's on another side. Someone made a joke about how we're both gay for each other, and someone replied to that comment saying, "Of course they're not. They're just two dudes who talk all the time. See,
we're just two bros hanging out who occasionally give hand jobs to each other."
Do not listen to him. Do not listen. They're just two guys. See how not gay they are by how far apart they are in the fucking layout.
It's not gay. Have you ever heard about the not gay thing that's done in movies? Once it's pointed out, it's really hard to ignore. So that in most movies they don't do it too much anymore, but any movies like before the year 2010, if the movie is going to be about a huge action star, he has to do something in the beginning of the movie that signals not gay. And he either bangs a bunch of chicks or denigrates and makes fun of girly men or gay people. So for instance, the movie Commando.
Of course.
If you watch the movie Commando, at the beginning of the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger is eating breakfast with Alyssa Milano, his daughter. And she talks about how she's really into Boy George. And he's like, more like Girl George, And so right at the beginning, we've established Arnold, not gay. And then they go on, and then he goes on, and the villain in Commando is super gay.
Is he super gay?
Oh, he's got like a mustache, buff kind of guy. It looks like he could be in the Village People. And then at the end, I think in the end he's actually impaled with a large pipe at the end. It's
ridiculous. Let off some steam, Bennett.
Yeah. it's ridiculous how homophobic that movie is.
Oh, I wouldn't
It's
go as far as to say it's homophobic.
oh my God, it's so homophobic.
think
Command,
so?
you need to watch it again. It is atrociously homophobic. But then you talk about like Star Trek, the new Star Trek. Not only do they have to have Kirk banging a green alien, but Spock has to be in a relationship with Uhura, even though that relationship makes no sense at all. To prove that like the buddy relationship between Spock and Kirk is totally not gay, So they don't do it, luckily they don't do it with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're finally like grown as a people, that neither one of them needs to make fun of gay people or like, prove he's gay by banging a bunch of chicks, But
Well, their dynamic seems like two dudes who like work together who are very adamant to prove to the audience that they're not gay, so they just kind of like awkwardly high five and that's the vibe I get. Like they don't click instantly.
But it's not over the top. I mean, we get a couple scenes. We get a scene where we get a scene where Bucky flirts with Sam's sister, and one could say, oh, that's the not gay signal. But it happens episode 5. It's way too late in the story.
In episode 1, where Bucky goes on the date with the girl and they play Battleship?
Oh, but the date goes poorly. He doesn't know how to be on a date. And so it kind of like that would, if you're reading into the fact that like Bucky and Falcon are gay for each other, that would be like, oh, so proof. He goes on a date with this beautiful girl and he doesn't know how to handle himself and, because he really wants to be with Falcon. Like that would be the argument you'd make, right? But like, by the time they get around to the fact that he's, flirting well with a woman, it's way too late in the story to be established as the not gay Q, that so many stories have. So, oh my God, like once you see it, like,
I'm gonna actually look for this because there are a lot of films that I enjoy from like before the 2010s. Like The Departed is one of my favorite films of all time, and I'll need to go back and watch it in The Departed. And really, Commando is homophobic.
My Commando is really bad. Like it's a ridiculous movie to begin with.
Oh, I love it.
It's really like once you put on the lens of like actually this is like a very it has a lot of comments about sexual preference. It's definitely there's a female person in the movie, but like Arnold Schwarzenegger never like flirts with her or gets with her, but you just kind of but he's the hero, so how are we going to establish that he's not gay? Well, he's got to make fun of Boy George at the beginning of the movie.
I was gonna say, at least the silver lining of Commando is at least it's not racist. So there's that. Before we wrap it up, real quick, today is the 10-year anniversary of Game of Thrones. We had nothing planned for the 10-year anniversary, did we?
No, I completely forgot about it.
You forgot about it.
I mean, some other stuff came, like other news was out there about the prequel series and stuff like that, but where I didn't think like, oh, I guess 10 years ago today Game of Thrones premiered.
Yeah, 10 years ago today it was a whole thing, changed everybody's lives, mine, yours, to some extent. There was a rumor that HBO might do some kind of redo of the final season, and this rumor kind of had almost no legs to really stand on, really, because the HBO Thrones Twitter page kept retweeting and tweeting some cryptic messages, but it could have been just to promote their marathon of the entire series.
We're going to do a Snyder Cut? What are they going to do? I mean...
Do you think a Snyder Cut version of Game of Thrones would actually... of Game of Thrones Season 8 and maybe 7 would actually fix some of the problems?
No, because the script was the thing that was shit. It's not like they filmed a scene of Theon killing the Night's King instead of Arya. Like like you can't fix that shit in post.
What if they got some of the actors back to like change that entire thing where Theon does kill the Night King?
I mean,
amongst other little things.
I don't know. I don't know if it could be fixed. I don't know.
I would
think
go
at
back
that
and watch
point-
it immediately. Hell yeah. Hell yes. I would go back and watch it immediately.
You know, if they follow, they take my Game of Thrones season 8 fixed and they film the whole thing based on that, so refilm it. We'll see. We'll see. Oh my.
Guys, you mind if I wrap it up?
All right.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier podcast thingy. We will see you next time for some more Fire and Blood. See you guys next time. Have a good one.